Welcome back into the Arrowhead Pride Draft Room. Again, we are live here from the NFL Draft in Kansas City on night two. It's been a quick round two of the NFL Draft. These picks are flying off the board, and we are live again, as is just being reported from NFL Network's Tom Pelissero, that the Kansas City Chiefs have traded up with the Detroit Lions. We're still awaiting the Los Angeles Chargers pick. They are on the clock currently, but it seems like the Chiefs are moving up just behind the Los Angeles Chargers. So we are eagerly awaiting their next pick in the second round. How you guys feeling? How's the board looking right now? Where do we think the Kansas City Chiefs are going with this pick?
Real quick, I do have some draft compensation to talk about with what the trade just was. The Chiefs gave up 63 to move up to 55. They gave up 122 and 249, so that's that first fourth round pick and then another seventh round pick. But they got 194, which I believe, if I can look here, 194 is in the sixth round. So they get an additional sixth round pick, but give up a fourth round pick to move up here. So kind of lose one of those early day three picks here, but. Yeah, I don't know. I'm seeing receiver. I think Jalen Hyde and Cedric Tillman are both on the board here. It makes a lot of sense. Dawan Jones is here too as well, though. And Caleb, I know he's a kind of a plug and play right tackle. Anyone you're kind of considering besides those three?
I think that's kind of in the range. If they wanted to double up on edge, I know that Tuli Tuipulotu is still on the board here. They have a couple of options along the defensive line, but really with them going defensive end with FAU last night, it does feel like this could be a tackle or receiver, or maybe even a tight end if they liked, enough of what they saw from one of the guys still available.
Yeah, this is interesting. I'm excited now. Let's go. I'm sitting here kind of like, oh, these picks are flying off the board. It's kind of nice. We're moving quick tonight after a late night last night. Now I'm getting rejuvenated. I'm getting pumped now. We got some action from the Kansas City Chiefs. We're looking to have our guy Rocky Magana jump in here in a couple of minutes as we eagerly await the Chiefs' next selection. Let's see what the Los Angeles Chargers do here. I feel like they could take a tight end. They need a tight end.
Yeah, Darnell Washington's still on the board, and I do think that would make sense for them. They do need a tight end, and that would take. I think the Chiefs do have interest in potentially taking tight end as well, but I think there are some receivers on the board. Again, I mentioned Tillman, I mentioned Hyatt. Rashee Rice, the SMU receiver, is also on the board. Fits that kind of physical profile of that X receiver that can win through physical coverage. Again, he's a little bit inconsistent, but he's also on the board. They'd be picking him over Cedric Tillman and Jalen Hyatt, which would be pretty wild to me, but I do think he is one of the options here. So we'll see.
So I think this is an interesting spot for the Chiefs to trade up. Also, I think maybe they were looking to get ahead of like a Jacksonville or the New York Giants if it is a wide receiver, if that's a position they're looking to attack here with this trade up, because both those teams could use it. Like both those teams have weapons already, but they could both kind of use another guy. And so I don't think I think this is the spot where maybe we've been kind of waiting all draft weekend so far for the Kansas City Chiefs to make a move. And this is finally the spot where it unfolded. So,
yep. And, my heart would go, my heart's going Jalen Hyatt. My brain's honestly going Cedric Tillman at this point. But, I think sometimes seeing some of those big, deep Mahomes bombs like we had a couple of years ago, those are kind of fun too. Maybe they might be looking to go back to trying to take the top off the defense a little more. But, there's still a lot of value out there at other positions too.
Well, I did see who they're taking. I don't know if you guys
sound thrilled right now.
If you don't want me to spoil it, but the Chiefs are going with receiver. They're going with a physical receiver. They're going with a guy that can, win through physical coverage, like I mentioned. But not the guy that you think maybe. Cedric Tillman, Tennessee receiver, is not who they're going with. They're going with Rashee Rice, SMU receiver, Southern Methodist University. They trade up to go get this guy. Freak athlete. He had a very good combine. As I pull up his stats here, he had, I know it was a 41.5-inch vertical.
His 40 was not good though. Let's not say that it was a
41-inch vertical, 10.8 broad, 4.5 140, but a 1.49 10 split. So he's explosive out of his cuts. He's a guy again that has that physicality, but also some athleticism there. On tape, though, he's super inconsistent, and he's kind of a weird player to watch on tape. You sometimes come away thinking he can do a lot more than he does. So, Rocky, what are your initial takes?
his highlight reel is some of the best plays you'll ever see, and then you'll just wonder why he doesn't get separation or make some routine plays as well. Um, I like him a lot. I liked him a lot really early on in the process, and then as the season kind of went on, you were just kind of like you kind of said, I just wish he had some more consistency. But he does give you. He is that Juju Smith-Schuster type of guy that they were looking to replace, right? Like they wanted that second big body opposite of Travis Kelce to kind of take the attention away from Travis Kelce.
Yeah, and this. Oh, sorry, Rock. I didn't mean to.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say this does seem like a really, a Brett Veach type pick. That yes, he does a little bit inconsistent with the way he plays, but they're drafting, an athlete who can be molded and coached into what they do. And, taking a look at his career production at SMU, he was fairly quiet, somewhat of an average player, just from what you see from his first 3 years there. But in 2022, he does pop off. He had the big 1,000-yard receiving season, 10 touchdowns. And like you mentioned, Rocky, some of those highlights, it's crazy to see some of the stuff he does. You can see all of the athletic traits and all of that. Now, this is interesting that, they did pass on Cedric Tillman and Jalen Hyatt here. And I think they've pretty much put themselves out of contention for getting a tackle unless they're able to trade back up. But they do have the big receiver now that kind of we've all been clamoring for, a guy that, is going to be able to go catch the ball and have some awesome yak production.
No, that's the thing. You mentioned offensive tackle. I really feel like it made sense for them to skip offensive tackle in this round. Now, I will say I did not think Dawan Jones would make it this far. I'm surprised they weren't more tempted by him, as that plug-and-play guy. But I do think it's kind of a weird spot for tackle right now. Round 3, round 4 makes a little more sense with guys like Nick Saldiveri, Wanya Morris, a few other guys, Tyler Steen maybe in that range. I think it makes sense to wait a little bit on offensive tackle. It's just not the right time to pick it right now. And defensive tackle too. I think they operated this well. I would have rather, again, got Tillman, but I think picking receiver was the right move here.
Yeah, picking receiver was 100% the right move here. I would have preferred Tillman as well, but Rashee Rice is now a Kansas City Chiefs, so now I'm a huge Rashee Rice fan. Right?
So,
he's our guy.
And you guys talked about his inconsistency, but he is an athletic wide receiver who does have that big body and the big frame that we've all kind of been looking for and hoping the Chiefs would add. Is he a player that you envision going off the board in the second round, or is this something where you're like, oh, wow, I did not expect this whatsoever?
No, he was 100% a second round guy.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd trade up for him, but he was definitely a second round graded guy. I probably had him. Yeah, I guess, we're getting towards the end of the second round. It's not like he went, in the 40s. Right. So I think this is about the area that you would see him go off the board just because of the tools and because of the production last year. But with Cedric Tillman still on the board, you have a very comparable player that I think brings a little bit more electric play and a little bit more consistency. But at the same time, Cedric Tillman's coming off an injury-plagued season. And Rice was 100% healthy last year.
So, but you guys did both mention his inconsistency, but he is an explosive player and an athletic player. So, when I think about that, and you mentioned he struggles to separate sometimes. When you say something like that, it makes me think of Chris Conley. So convince me this isn't just Chris Conley again for the Kansas City Chiefs.
No, Chris Conley was a much better athlete.
No, the weird thing about Rice, I will say, is when you watch him, he looks so good off the snap. He does a very good job of winning right off the snap. Winning with good hand fighting. If he's playing against press coverage, kind of creating that initial separation. And what's weird about him is it's almost like he doesn't finish plays a lot of time. It's almost like he gets kind of complacent with, hey, I got the initial separation. I don't need to create any more separation, and almost invites the defensive back into the play at some points. But again, he has contested catch, opportunities on his film. Obviously the athleticism's there. He's going to be able to win deep, but also win, kind of over the middle. He does fit some of the stylistic categories the Chiefs needed at wide receiver. Definitely. I mean, that's why I wanted a Tillman or a Jonathan Mingo. But again, I just think those two were much more impressive on tape to me. I think Rice has a long way to go development-wise. But, hey, if you're going to get developed somewhere, I was going to say Kansas City is a great place. We have seen receivers kind of, the receiver development hasn't necessarily been this great storyline in Kansas City. I think they've had some failures there. But again, I just think he fits the type of receiver they need. And so if he can kind of fill that role at the very minimum, I think it was a good pick.
So now just taking a look at the receiver room and kind of that pass catcher room the Chiefs have put together. Now they have obviously Travis Kelce, but they've got Sky, Tony, MVS, possibly Justin Ross. Am I leaving anyone? And Rice now? And it kind of feels like out of that group, everyone is going to kind of maybe have a little bit more of a defined role. Maybe MVS goes back to being just that, just the big play guy, deep guy. And then they try to work Sky into more of a slot type role, kind of like where Juju played, but they're going to want to get Rice some outside looks, obviously, where he can use his athleticism to be able to go up and make some plays, create some explosion underneath. I think that's really where they can use him a lot early on, get him some routes underneath the line of scrimmage, let him operate, on some slants, on some in routes, and then just kind of let him go to work where he can use some of that vision he has, use, his physical nature. And then,
go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, yeah. And then just kind of, I think that's setting up Kadarius Toney to be kind of where he needs to be. I know there's a lot of hype about him possibly being the wide receiver one. I don't see that really for him just because of the injury history, but now it's taking even more weight off of his shoulders to where he doesn't have to necessarily play a lot of snaps every game, and they can kind of save his best just by adding another body. And, obviously it's going to take a little time to get Rice on the field, but if he does get on the field, sooner than later, I think that it's going to end up being a major plus for the Chiefs just from having, an athletic guy who can go up and get the ball in any kind of separation, any kind of space.
Yeah, and the thing is, he had almost 600 yards after the catch last year. So he is good with the ball in his hand after the catch, and he has the size and physicality. He averaged 6.2 yards after the catch per reception last year. Now, some of the bad things are, he caused 4 interceptions to his quarterback last year, and he fumbled the ball 3 times, and he does have a less than 50% contested catch percentage, where you would like to see that for a bigger physical guy, you would like to see that closer to like the mid 50s or something like that, instead of being sub 50-50 ball. He's bringing in 48% of 50-50 balls, but he's a physical receiver. So that's something he's going to need to, he's going to need to work on, whether it's just like a body positioning thing or just stronger hands and attacking the ball more and not letting it come to him. But those 3 fumbles have got to get cleaned up too. You can't put the ball on the ground 3 times.
He's got to clean up the turnovers a lot, man. That's the kind of stuff that's gotten the Chiefs beat in the past.
Well, and I do feel like it's pretty safe to say that he's going to be a project and like he's going to take some developing, but he's going to have time to develop with the Kansas City Chiefs because we know he's not going to be a day one starter. Like he's not going to be a guy who plays at 85% of the snaps or something ridiculous like that in week 1 of next season. But there's also like, I think you can read a lot into how the Chiefs built out the wide receiver room this year where, a lot of these guys aren't going to make the team probably because there's just a ton of bodies in that group right now with MVS, Tony, Moore, Richie James, Justin Watson, Cornell Powell's for sure not going to make the team. John Ross, Justin Ross, and then you add in this rookie, and there's just a lot of bodies. But I feel like that's the Chiefs, and you think back to the postseason last year where they're down to Marcus Kemp as playing in significant, crucial moments of the NFL season. And they're just like, okay, we just got to make sure we got more bodies. We got to make sure we got more wide receivers who can come in and make plays for Patrick Mahomes. So this is the wide receiver that we were all waiting for. Maybe not necessarily the exact guy that we all wanted and were hoping for. But I think that we should be happy that the Chiefs took another wide receiver because it says that they're not complacent with the group that they put together, even though they've got a ton of bodies in that room right now. They know they can still get better. And they're really betting on a lot with this group. Like, I feel like the only guy in their wide receiver group right now that you know definitively what you're going to get is MVS. And like, we know what we're going to get from MVS. It's not elite level play. He's going to have some big games here and there, and he's going to make some big plays. But for the most part, he's going to be pretty inconsistent. Outside of that, we don't really have anything definitive that we could say about this wide receiver group other than projecting potential. And that's kind of what the whole room is right now. But you're just banking on the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid being able to get the most out of these guys.
Oh, 100%. And I mean, we've been banging the table for a wide receiver that's over 6'1" and over 200 pounds for a really long time. And we finally got it, right? We finally got in the draft. It's a premium pick. They believe in the guy. I'm at the point in my life where all my reservations aside about what the guy isn't, I want to lean into what he is and trust this, Hall of Fame coaching staff that the Chiefs have, and this general manager that's been on an unbeatable heater for the last 2 years,
So
as far as acquiring talent.
Really quickly, and Rice is also 23 years old. So I did say earlier, it does seem kind of like a pick the Chiefs would make as far as his athletic ability. They're going to bet off of that and try to improve the areas of his game that need work. But I don't know, at 23 years old, maybe he's going from, maybe they have a ton more confidence in him than we do, than maybe some, maybe just kind of what the initial thought of, Andy and those receivers. Because, at 23, he's got to get on the field sooner or later at that age, or he's not going to be, they're not going to be able to get the best football out of him for the longest.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting pick. And he we talked about earlier when we were going through Ron's players to keep an eye on day 2 of the NFL draft. Like, he was in that grouping of those wide receivers. So this certainly doesn't come as a shock. It fills a position that we were eager to see the Chiefs attack. And it kind of plays into what we talked about last night with the way the end of the first round played out, where we were feeling really good about ourselves around pick 20, and then it all just kind of fell apart. But now you give up a little bit to move up and make this move, and I think you had to get ahead of a couple of teams who are right there to make sure that you get that guy. So you had to feel comfortable about it. But you still have enough ammunition in the third round to try to make some noise and to try to move up and get some stuff. You got the late third round pick, but you still have another 4th round pick. You got the 6th round picks, and you got the 7th round picks. So you can try to put together some other kind of package to make some more noise before we wrap things up on day 2 of the NFL draft. So overall, I mean, edge, wide receiver, 2 picks. Like, how are we feeling about the Chiefs draft class so far?
Super solid so far. I think that, you come into the draft thinking the Chiefs have probably 4 major needs: edge rusher, defensive tackle, offensive tackle, right? And then wide receiver. And so far, 2 picks, 2 of those needs are taken off the board with players that on some level you think they were pretty good value at the position they were taking, and that they're going to be solid contributors at their floor, right? Like Rashee Rice isn't going to be a bust. He may be a guy who only gets 600 yards a year for 7 years in the league, but that's not a bust. That's a productive wide receiver in the NFL.
Caleb, how are we feeling day 2 with a full round left to go tonight, and the Chiefs at least one more pick this evening, unless they do something drastic? Like, how are we feeling right now?
So FAU felt incredibly expected, is when the board didn't really fall their way. That kind of felt like a consensus pick. We were walking around earlier in the day, and I think we were all kind of like, man, FAU is going to make a lot of sense if things don't really go our way. This was totally unexpected. I did not see them, you could see them trading up. Yes, I did not see them going after Rashee Rice. I just thought with some of the other, stuff, the other players they'd looked at, I thought maybe they'd be more in on Tillman, maybe more in on Hyatt. But that just goes to show you, you take a look at like the media big boards and like the big boards that we do, and they can be totally off from how these guys in the NFL, how these general managers and front office and scouts feel about the exact same prospects. And obviously they should be, because they're the ones that have time to go in and talk to these guys firsthand. But I think it's a fun pick. It's going to be, if it works out, it's going to end up being really good. We're all going to end up being really happy with it. So, I mean, I just think it's going to be one of those things. We just have to kind of wait and see on it.
Yeah, no, I do want to get my 2 cents in here because I've been kind of writing here and kind of not hearing exactly what you guys have been talking about. So sorry if I repeat here, but this is the thing, man. The Chiefs really do need this type of receiver in their offense at the bare minimum. No matter who the name was that came across, they needed a bigger receiver with some physicality, some strength to him. Again, to win through press coverage, to win over the middle of the field. Being on the perimeter, being on the outside, winning, towards the sideline. MVS is a great deep threat or a good deep threat, but he's not necessarily winning on contested catches at the sideline. He's not that kind of strong player. So I do think the type of player is the right pick. I'm glad it was cool to see them move up to get their guy, right? They really believe in this guy, obviously, because they moved up to get him. But again, I would have rather seen Cedric Tillman. I think he's a better prospect, and I think he would have fit that same category of player and maybe be a better player. So I would have liked to see Tillman. But again, the Chiefs made the right move in terms of the style of player they needed to get at this point.
And only 2 picks into this thing, two additions to the 2023 Kansas City Chiefs roster, and it is important to remember in these moments, whether it's a guy that we have red flags about and questions about, or somebody that we're banging a drum for all draft season, is that the Kansas City Chiefs are still the Kansas City Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. So while a lot of NFL fans are getting devastated by their team's picks right now, we're still in pretty good shape. The cornerstones are still there, and we're still just trying to fill out the roster and find some playmakers at the position the Chiefs are slotted, which obviously isn't a favorable position to always find star caliber players. So you really got to do your homework. And I think that Brett Veach, his last 2 years with these draft classes and the impact players that he's found with the Chiefs draft slots, I think he's done enough for us to give him the benefit of the doubt. So I'm excited to see what they do the rest of the way. I still think I'd really like to see them try to make some moves here in the 3rd round, because I think with those 6th round picks and the 7th round picks that they have, and the 4th round and 5th, and that's enough draft ammunition to try to move up a little bit more here. So they take SMU wide receiver Rashee Rice, and I think we're feeling okay about it. But as I mentioned, it may be a little bit before the Kansas City Chiefs are back on the clock again. So we're going to take another quick timeout, but we will come back as soon as the Chiefs are back up and as soon as they're getting ready to pick. Rocky, my guy, Rocky Magana, you can follow him on Twitter at Rocky Magana. We appreciate you joining us. I'm sure you'd be happy to join us again later when the Kansas City Chiefs pick. So we will hit you up for sure.
You can't keep me off, bro. I'm coming back, whether you invite me or not. I got the link.
All right. Well, we're gonna change the link, but we'll send you the new one, Rocky.
Check out the live blog. We're working hard on it.
Yes, go check out the live blog at arrowheadpride.com. I'm sure we'll have something up on Rashee Rice here very, very quickly. So make sure you're locked into arrowheadpride.com. As always, please make sure you subscribe, rate, and review everything that we're doing on the Arrowhead Pride Podcast Network. We're going to take a quick time out, but we will be back here in just a little bit as soon as the Kansas City Chiefs are up again. We'll talk to you.